UBX's goal is to make banking invisible by using cutting edge technology and data to make financial services seamlessly integrated into the moments that matter for people. By digitizing financial institutions and their back office systems to make processes more efficient. By equipping entrepreneurs with the proper tools to run their businesses and empowering them to participate in the global economy. And by leveraging on years of experience in banking and finance, logistics, real estate, and social enterprise. It is our mission to build safer, faster, and more customer-centric fintech solutions for a more financially inclusive tomorrow. Because at UBX, we include everyone.
Good morning, everyone. To ensure that you enjoy the best experience from today's UnionBank TalkTales, please ensure that you are using a stable internet connection. As much as possible, please work in a quiet room where the background noise is minimized. Your camera and microphone will be disabled for the first portion of the program. We will enable it later during the media Q&A. Please don't hesitate to use the chat box to raise any concern about the webinar. For media Q&As, please raise your hand during the Zoom platform. When you have been acknowledged, please identify yourself and the organization you're representing and proceed to your questions. For any additional questions, please email grace.antonio@grupoagadet.com. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the day.
Good morning, everyone. I am James Sileto, Head of Corporate Media and Public Relations of Union Bank of the Philippines. I am very happy to see all of you here today for the fourth iteration of our E-TalkTales. One of the most exciting things about digital transformation in banking and finance is the possibility of services being woven into every aspect of our day-to-day lives. Imagine a world where customers won't have to look at banking as a chore, where financial services are integrated in everyday activities, and where transactions just happen. This is called invisible banking. We may not realize it, but invisible banking transactions are now taking place around us. Monthly bills and subscriptions are being settled through automated payment methods. Online shoppers now have voice shopping via virtual assistants like Alexa and Siri. Ordering, paying for fresh produce can now be done with the touchscreen interface on a smart refrigerator. These are some examples of embedded banking experiences that are now possible with the technologies that are currently available to us. They offer us a glimpse into a future where banking is invisible, a future of unprecedented connectivity, seamlessness, and convenience. And with the rate at which solutions are being created based on emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, and immersive media, coupled with the recent growth of digital banking as a result of the current health crisis, this reality of embedded banking becoming the norm is on the horizon. At UnionBank, we believe that invisible banking is integral to our overall goal of enabling inclusive prosperity for every Filipino, which is why we launched UBX in 2019. UBX is UnionBank's fintech arm, focused on harness technology to enable embedded customer experiences. Since its launch last year, UBX has been hard at work in creating solutions designed to reduce friction and address the numerous pain points associated with utilizing financial services. We'll be discussing more about UBX in a few moments. Before that, let me introduce you to our moderator for today's event. He is the president of W Energy Power Pilipinas, founder and managing director of Library Renewal Partnership, and anchor at the ABS-CBN News Channel, or ANC. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Quintin Pastrana. Quintin.
Good morning, James, and good morning to our participants, especially our friends from the media. I'm pleased to be here with you today for this month's E-TalkTales, our fourth in the series. Making financial transactions a seamless part of everyday lives is slowly becoming a reality. And this process has undoubtedly been hastened by the current health crisis we're in. But more than convenience, invisible banking offers us so much more. To discuss that groundbreaking and better normal today, we are joined by John Januszczak, President and CEO of UBX. Good morning, John. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Quintin. Thank you for the very warm introduction. I have a few slides that I'd like to flash in the background as I talk a little bit about UBX. So let me just do that now. All right, so James and Quintin alluded to the fact that UBX in many ways is all about invisible banking. So let me give a quick history lesson in about 15 seconds or less. UnionBank has been on a digital transformation journey over the past 5 years, and I know that many of you joining today have had a chance to hear about that journey, where we are today and where we're going from some of the other folks at at UnionBank over the last few E-TalkTales sessions. And as you've probably learned, at this point today, UnionBank is fully digital. While we have branches and we have a digital experience in those branches, if you wanted to, you could bank with UnionBank completely digitally, completely virtually. You don't have to walk into a branch. But while the bank is fully digital, it's still a place you go to, even if virtually. More often than not, you are going to the UnionBank app, or if you are a business, you're going to the UnionBank portal to do your banking. It's digital, but you're still going to the bank. And looking beyond this digital transformation, we saw a future where we take this to the next level, where digital banking isn't just in an app that you go to, but it's seamlessly embedded into the activities and the experiences that truly matter to consumers and businesses. And so in 2018, December 2018, we spun UBX out of UnionBank to pursue this vision. And as the picture that I flashed up here shows, we see three really interesting attributes or important attributes of pursuing this vision. So number one, platforms. Big tech and emerging non-banking technology platforms are achieving scale and client reach at this point that exceeds those of traditional banks. In a way, digital platforms have become the main street of today. And we found, when we looked at this, we found gaps in the market. We found digitally and financially underserved communities in the Philippines for which we felt that we too could be a platform builder. On top of that, and it goes to the next part of the picture there is virtualization. In pursuing these platforms, we also saw the need to aggregate and virtualize financial services to make it easier to embed them into not just the platforms that we are building, but into the platforms, the digital platforms of others. And I guess the second part of the virtualization is that we also know where the future is heading. More and more regulators around the world, and I'm sure in the Philippines, are going to take us towards a more open future. And you'll hear terms like open banking, the Payment Services Directive in Europe. Open banking is now the law in the UK. And not just the Philippines, but neighboring countries in our region, like Singapore and Indonesia, are actively looking at open banking. So virtualization of financial services, aggregation of financial services is a key ingredient, not just for platforms, but also the future of banking. And lastly, we realize that technology transcends borders. UnionBank is, physically, we all sit here in the Philippines. We are a Philippine company, but we've incorporated in Singapore. And through that, we are investing in technology, not just in the Philippines, but beyond the Philippines. And we are looking for opportunities where we can take the technology we're building for the Philippines and take it regionally. And a recent remittance pilot we did late last year through the PayNow network and in partnership with OCBC in Singapore is a great example of that. So when I talk about platforms and when I talk about embedding financial services into platforms, what do I mean? So I wanted to start with an example. And this example is relevant to micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. As many of you know, MSMEs represent over 99.5% of businesses in the Philippines. They drive over 60% of the GDP. They employ over 60% of the population. And yet, under 10% of the credit extended by banks goes to this very crucial segment or sector of our economy. So we created CCAP, which is a multi-lender online marketplace for SME loans. And to date, and you can go online, you can go to ccap.ph. To date, we've already had, and we've only been at it really since the beginning of this year. To date, we already have over $500 million in application volume through this platform. Since the pandemic started, application volumes are up over 300%. And I don't think this is surprising. Obviously, SMEs have been perhaps more acutely affected than larger businesses by the pandemic. And, you know, it was funny. We originally thought that this will be relevant during the pandemic because it's digitally accessible, but lenders would probably be tightening their credit policies. You know, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to lend under the circumstances. But offsetting that were lenders who themselves needed to connect with the people they wanted or still wanted to lend to, but they needed to do it digitally. So we saw a lot of demand, not just from borrowers, but from lenders. However, the real story here is the embedding. Behind CCAP is an embeddable AI-driven lending platform. We built this platform in partnership with Ping An One Connect. It provides a digital end-to-end lending experience, and it's embeddable not just into CCAP, but into the platforms of others. So now we are connecting SMEs to multiple lenders by embedding this platform into the platforms that SMEs use every day. For example, Lazada. Many SMEs now are using e-commerce platforms like Lazada to reach and to sell to their customers. And so we are now working to embed this lending platform into platforms like Lazada. And in fact, we have a partnership with Lazada to do exactly that. Zooming out. So that's an example. I wanted to give a specific example of what I meant by embedding platforms and embedding platforms, but I wanted to zoom back out and explain how we at UBX are making invisible banking reality. We have three parts to UBX to make this happen. Number one, we are developing technology like the CCAP marketplace and the lending platform I just shared with you, but we are also buying. We actively invest in the innovation of others, and we do this through our venture capital fund. In fact, Matt Kolling, our new Chief Investment Officer, has joined us today and will speak a little bit later about some of our investments like Xlog, which is a digital logistics platform where we will be in turn embedding financial services. We are investing in AI technology that leverages the vast amounts of data digital platforms are generating to do things like credit scoring. And lastly, and we think this one is often overlooked, UBX is also bridging a critical gap. We have a technology services team, and what this team does is we can deploy it to other platforms and to businesses to help them embed financial services directly into their business systems. So going back to some of the examples that we are building or investing in. COVID has obviously drastically changed consumer behaviors and how businesses must operate. These are trying times, but these trying times have led to what I believe is a golden age for e-commerce. All businesses, especially MSMEs, have had to start transacting online out of sheer necessity. Bucks is an embeddable payments platform that accepts all methods of payment. So we created Bucks so that we could integrate it into the platforms that MSMEs are using to sell and do retailing online. And it can be as simple as integrating into Facebook and Viber, or it can be a little bit more complicated. And we integrate into more comprehensive e-commerce platforms like PrestaShop, WooCommerce, and soon Shopify. And in fact, we go further than that. We are integrating into the business systems of other online platforms that cater to SMEs. To date, we've had over 80,000 sellers registered on the platform. One thing we've noticed though is as some of these SMEs move from very simple platforms like Viber, and when the pandemic and the lockdown started, a lot of even big businesses, they scrambled, they got on Viber. This is how they were sharing, restaurants were sharing menus over Viber and within Viber groups. But at some point they want to move from Viber to a real e-commerce platform. And to make that transition easier, we created Centro. Centro, everyone from casual sellers to larger mid-tier businesses can create an online web store with built-in inventory management, built-in order tracking, a shopping cart. Of course, Bucks for payments is integrated, and courier services such as Mr. Speedy, and it's all just built in. MSMEs can start selling online in a matter of minutes. Just to give you a sense of the demand, or how this has resonated with the market. We've only had Centro up for a few months, and we already have over 17,000 retailers and businesses signed up. I want to switch gears a little bit because as James alluded to at the very beginning, our platforms are also having a positive and a material impact on financial inclusion. And so I wanted to talk about one of those platforms, and this is Eye2Eye. When we looked at digitally underserved ecosystems, ironically, one of the ecosystems that jumped out of our radar was the ecosystem of financial institutions themselves. Financial institutions such as savings and thrift banks, rural banks, cooperatives, and pawn shops, really best positioned in the community to serve the financially excluded. As many of you know, it's estimated that 70% of Filipinos are still without a bank account. Well, many of these community-based financial institutions literally best placed in the community to serve the financially excluded are themselves excluded. They're excluded from the digital payment systems of the nation. They're excluded from digital transformation itself. And it's usually because of economics. They can't afford it, or they think they can't afford it. Or even if they could afford it, they don't have the digital capabilities to make it a reality. And so we created Eye2Eye. And the first thing we did with Eye2Eye is we created a real-time distributed payments network that could connect all of these institutions together. And we figured once we connected these institutions together, and once we leveraged that to connect them in turn to the national retail payment system, things like InstaPay and PesoNet that customers of larger universal banks take for granted, it would give them a taste of digital transformation. And from there, they would continue to digitize their operations. And through Eye2Eye, we've now added additional digital transformation opportunities for these financial institutions. We have Eye2Eye mobile ATM, which allows them to extend their bank or their financial institution beyond the walls of their branches. We have, in a digital way, we have agency banking, we have digital credit scoring, and more. And it's all cloud-based, fully managed service. They don't have to invest in technology or the capabilities to run it. Eye2Eye volumes since the beginning of the pandemic up over 1,000%. It sounds like a very conveniently dramatic number, but it is reality. As the pandemic affected small financial institutions, just like SMEs, they needed to have digital channels out of sheer necessity, and volumes have been up since March over 10 times. In fact, because we can now reach so far into the networks of these financial institutions, the DSWD is currently leveraging the reach of Eye2Eye to distribute SAP relief. And so while Eye2Eye is a blockchain-enabled real-time network leveraging the first BSP-approved stablecoin, it's actually not ultimately about the technology. It's really about connecting the nation, whether it's distributing relief, sending funds to loved ones, or just making it easier to do business in trying times. So that's today. I just wanted to finish with a view to the future. While we are bringing the platforms like some of the ones that I've highlighted just now, we continue to invest in the future, in tomorrow. UBX is helping to bring innovation from companies in our UBX Venture Fund to market. For example, the Philippine Data Asset Exchange, PDAX, is a UBX investment. Recently, they launched bonds.ph. It got a bit of press. It's a blockchain-enabled app that allows Filipinos unrestricted access to buy treasury bills directly through a mobile app. We are investing in things like extending what we've done with bonds through bonds.ph to other asset classes like real estate. So we are looking at democratizing real estate through asset tokenization using our Bidit platform. And so now and in the future, UBX is definitely changing the face of banking. I wanted to leave with a couple of videos, and I'm going to have the team queue them up. I spoke about Centro, and I thought it would be great to just show you how simple, easy, and fast it is to get online with Centro. So I'm going to get the team to queue that up.
Be the center of attention. Create your online shop with Centro. and change the way you make your website. Whether you're a casual seller or a small business, Centro will help you go online and sell. No need to be a techie because it's fast, easy, and simple. Best of all, it's free. Centro is an online shop builder that accepts payments and tracks your deliveries in minutes. You can create your shop in just a few clicks. All you have to do is choose your shop style. Our simple but functional templates ensure that your online shop highlights what's important, your products. Next is input your shop's information. Choose the details you want to put about your shop. After that, you can add your shop's products. Listing it should be easy because we made sure that you just have to put the important details first so you can keep going. Then, you can choose your payment method. That's right, your online shop can already accept payments. Cater to more customers by having multiple payment options. Facilitate cash, over-the-counter, and online payments in a snap. Finally, publish your work. With Centro, everything is designed so you can launch your online shop fast and sell fast. We have the right tools you need to make your shop work. So, what are you waiting for? Be the Centro of attention. Go to centro.ph and launch your online shop now.
Fantastic. And one more video. I had alluded to our impact on financial inclusion, our positive impact, and just a short video on eye to eye and what we think it means.
Bilang isang ama, pangarap ko na mabigyan ng magandang buhay ang aking pamilya. Kinailangan kong malayo sa kanila at lumuwas ng Maynila. Mahirap pero masaya. Minsan malungkot, pero ngiti pa lang nila, ayos na. At gaano man ako kalayo sa kanila, alam kong kaya ko. Kaya kong ipadama ang pagmamahal ko sa kanila. Pera padala? Magabayad ng bills. Huwag ka na mag-alala dahil dinadala ng I2I ang mga serbisyong pinansyal malapit sa iyo. Mag-transfer ng pera sa alinman sa mahigit 1,000 branches ng 100 rural at savings bank members o sa alinman sa major banks nationwide. Maaari ka ring magpadala ng pera sa mga remittance centers tulad ng LBC, Cebuana at Pera Hub branches at magbayad ng bills sa mahigit 250 I2I partner billers. Ipadama ang pagmamahal kahit na malayo ka sa kanila. Tuloy ang buhay sa I2I.
All right, Quintin, are you there?
Yeah, absolutely. John, thank you so much for that in-depth presentation. Now, before we start the discussion, let me introduce another guest who's going to join us in today's Q&A. Please welcome Matt Kolling, Chief Investment Officer at UBX. Good morning, Matt. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Quintin. Thanks for having me.
Well, Matt, you've got some exciting, insights in terms of overview, in terms of where the investments for UBX are going. Can you give us a flavor of that before we start the Q&A?
Yeah, the mission with and the vision for my arrival at UBX is to be able to extend the vision that John has shared, and that through transactions we can really make step change moves to advance the growth and the rollout of these topics, these functions, and the reach that is ever so critical. And so it's unique for our organization to have the internal capability to be able to transact, providing agility and also the ability to move with confidence to do those step change transactions.
Well, certainly, Matt, I mean, it's always good to have an arsenal with you to make these investments, to scale up any of these innovations, both in-house and the acquisitions that you're going to be making also in the next few months. So look forward to that as well. Let's start the dialogue, gentlemen. Let's start with John. John, I mean, you mentioned you want to make financial services more seamlessly blended into everyday experiences. I mean, this is obviously a transition for many of us, especially in the Philippines. Any hindrances that you've encountered, and how have you overcome these to make this dream a reality?
Yeah, so just some examples. So connectivity in the Philippines is a, once you get out of the larger cities, connectivity can be a bit of a problem, spotty internet. And to overcome that, we have, we've done things like I alluded to, for example, our eye-to-eye mobile ATM and agency banking. We run these apps are capable of running on mobile devices on a network as weak as 2G. So they're designed out of the box to be resilient and robust under spotty connectivity. All of our applications have online, offline capability, so that they can still function offline and sync up later. In fact, we go even further. I talked about eye-to-eye as a network connecting banks, and then upon that platform, we provide further digital capabilities. One that's very interesting is a software-based WAN service, and literally what this does is it allows remote locations, and quite frankly, even non-remote locations. Often they're reliant on a single internet service provider. And what this does, it allows them to have resiliency by being able to, in real time, cut across service providers to ensure the strength of their connectivity is in place. Because obviously, as you go digital, at the very foundational level, you need to be ultimately in some way connected. So there's an example of how we have dealt with things that otherwise might get in the way of digital and invisible banking.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's also note, when you do your design for the programs, that you're actually adapting or empathizing with the user, having someone with a 2G broadband network and all these limited capabilities, and you're still be able to bank with them is something notable as well, because at least that will bring more people into this inclusive environment. So well said, and it's good to see that coming into the countryside as well. Now, let's talk about this pandemic, right? We're still in this prolonged pandemic. We don't see a definite out yet. The question we have is, since it's produced a tectonic shift, and you look at SMEs or MSMEs, which are over 99%, as you mentioned, of the country's registered enterprises, and a lot of vulnerability there. How do you get them to be more, confident in the platforms and the embeddedness and and the virtualization that you mentioned? I mean, obviously, it was good to have a 300% uptake, but there's a lot more to do. Tell us about how you plan to advance that and get more traction when it comes to MSMEs coming online.
Right. Well, one of the benefits of having a digital platform is you might have. I alluded to over 80,000 sellers, but we know who each and every one of them are, and just very fundamentally, you always have to start with the customer and knowing your customer. So very early on, we've always been connecting directly with our users, with our clients, and that includes in the SME community. And we talked to the SME community about what really causes them pain. So we had people come in and visit us. We've obviously now virtually we continue to talk to them, and things that cause them pain. Fundamentally, access to credit. MSMEs are traditionally underserved there. MSMEs, you know, it's funny, before the pandemic, they were already talking about the need to start digitizing their business. And of course, if you're an SME, you're very acutely aware to the money coming in. And so typically the digital transformation journey for SMEs starts with selling. And so, you know, that's why we focused on that. In fact, when we did our research, you know, officially, there's around a million SMEs in the Philippines. Most of those, it's not an even distribution. Most of them are on the smaller or the micro side, but that's the official market. What we uncovered was you know, we call it a shadow micro small market of casual sellers, people with side hustles. We figure there's at least 2 million of these in addition to the official stats. And, you know, and that's our research and our estimate. Others will have different numbers. And we saw that this group, you know, they're the ones who are going to graduate into the official statistics around SMEs. And how do we disrupt at the very start? How do we connect with these guys? And when we talked to these guys, very much it was around selling. It was the ability to accept payments and do it in a way where their customers, you know, could pay through other channels. And so that's exactly why we started with embedded payments, and in turn creating this very simple, fast, and easy to use e-commerce platform, Centro. Now, of course, COVID is an extremely unfortunate confluence of events, but it was, I suppose, serendipitous for us that we had already identified this need, because that need has only been amplified under the pandemic and the various kind of forms of lockdown and quarantine that we've been under. And I think we've seen that we have identified an important niche, and it's resonating. So yeah.
Yeah, John, thanks for that. I mean, you notice also when you look at these different marketplaces where informal sellers are coming about, that's certainly a lot of potential there to bring to the pipeline of registered enterprises. There's a lot of upside there. You know, conversational commerce is ongoing, and it's good to see that your platforms and apps actually encourage them to use you know, those tools so they can actually formalize and you know, get in that net and contribute to the economy. There's a lot more to go. You know, it's a lot of upside. You mentioned, you know, it's a majority of the employment. At the same time, you're looking at, you know, less access to credit, and you're improving that. But more importantly, I mean, MSMEs are actually just a third of GDP and 20% of exports. So there's a lot to go, and we're glad UBX is getting into that space and doing the first mover to make sure that they're inclusive, but at the same time empowered to make sure they contribute to the economy. Now,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna, if it's okay, I was just gonna add on, right? I'm sure we've all done it. We want to get, you know, especially, you know, maybe things are opening up a bit more now, but you'd go to the community Viber food group, you know, to order your dinner. And in some respects, it's people helping each other out. But, you know, some of these people will get a taste of that, and they will make a business out of that. Ironically, some of the, you know, I'm just talking about food as an example, but some of the larger restaurants, the more you know, brand recognizable restaurants, you know, they didn't have an online presence, and they were, I think I even said it when I was sharing on the slides, they're sharing menus over Viber. And so it's not just emerging business, it's even existing businesses that, you know, as I said, out of sheer necessity, they've got to go online. And so our research and our engaging with SMEs very early on has, you know, paid off and allowed us to be a real net positive contributor in the current situation.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's nice to see that value chain where people are moving from the informal to the formal economy and contributing to the economy, and you hastening that with your platforms. You know, at this point, I mean, we're talking about financial inclusion. Let me bring Matt in as well. When we talk about financial inclusion, tools you're developing, the innovations you're investing in, talk to us about, you know, the traction you're getting in terms of making financial inclusion a reality, both for individuals and institutions? Matt, you're on the investment side. What is your lens showing you? What does a crystal ball look right now for you in terms of where the appetite is for investing? And John, I mean, talk to us about the rolling out of these platforms. Gents.
Thanks. Yeah, we've had a good traction and always a constant pipeline of investment opportunities, and a shared value or goal we have with the founders is, if the founder is a subject matter expert of the market they're addressing, and share the value with us of the user experience, and that is really critical for a sustained engagement of these services and a progression all the way through, as they grow, as the overall size of the pie grows, they're contributing to that, and we're enabling their participation through focusing on people who are good at what they do. We want to invest in them when they've got user experience, and the step change frequently is there's usually a channel relationship in one direction or the other or both, where we can accelerate each other. A strategic investment is two-way strategic, and that's the degree of cooperation, and we look to advance that through making investments.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for that. I mean, it's really important to note that, you know, it's one thing to speak to the founders and really have this good relationship with them to bring their innovations to the fore, but it's also one thing to put your money where your mouth is and get that money in there and the investments in there so you can scale up and replicate across the archipelago. John, talk to us more about, you know, those programs coming up in the pipeline that you can hasten financial inclusion across the archipelago.
Right. Well, you know, we've been talking a lot about the MSMEs, and I think giving them access to digital payments, giving them access to a sophisticated yet simple e-commerce platform, giving them access, most importantly, actually, to credit that otherwise they had difficulty, you know, even accessing, let alone qualifying for, you know, and at a decent price. You know, that's the other part of it, right? I mean, maybe the credit is available, but the price is a little bit a little high, a little tough to swallow, which kind of defeats the purpose of credit, right? There should be a virtuous credit cycle. You get credit to expand your business to make more money, and when you achieve that, you borrow a little bit more, and you keep the cycle, the very positive cycle, going. So all of those things, like our lending platform and payments and e-commerce, I mean, I think those, you know, along the lines of what I'm saying right now, definitely speak directly to financial inclusion, in this case for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. You know, more at the individual level, we, you know, the biggest one that I guess I'd like to highlight, or at least it's big in my mind. I mean, these are all, to me, impactful in their own way, and I guess we can't compare them. But the one that's big in my mind, of course, is the iTi platform that I shared. In this case, you know, we're talking about a community that might not just, you know, smartphones at this point, I think, have penetrated virtually all segments, socio-demographic segments and sectors of our society. But that being said, it doesn't mean someone's going to get a smartphone and just download an app and trust it and use it, right? And so we see that there is an offline to online component here. We've identified financial institutions, and I talked about including those institutions themselves, but in turn, they are known to the community. You know, at the end of the day, you can physically walk into their branch and talk to them. However, you know, that trust will in turn provide an opening for their customers and individuals who have been financially excluded to date to leverage digital and to now be included in the financial system. I'll just give a couple quick stories to make my point. There's one of the banks, one of the rural banks on our I2I network. In the past, they would have, they would have customers of the bank who are, small scale business. Maybe they order something from Manila. So they go to their rural bank. The rural bank has to send a messenger. It takes them half a day to get to the next town to deposit the money in BDO or a union, perhaps even a UnionBank account. They come back they take a picture of the deposit. Everyone's done this, right? You take a picture of the deposit slip and they send that over Viber to their supplier in Manila, to show proof of payment. Of course, what happens now today is they simply, through their rural bank, in real time, they transfer money directly from their account to, in this case, a supplier's account in a universal bank in Manila. And that's done in real time. So that's one story. Another story, I talked about embedding our lending platform. One of the platforms that we've embedded our lending platform for SMEs into is the ordering system of FMCG distributors. And so we've done this in partnership with UnionBank as the underwriter and True Money as the technology, the field technology provider for the distributors. So in the past, distributor shows up, they're selling their noodles. It could be something as small as a sorry store. They don't have the cash. I don't know, the Coca-Cola guy came 2 hours earlier and they're out of cash, but of course they can sell the noodles. Unfortunately, what was happening was they would have to wait until the distributor came back. Of course, they know they can move the goods. So they probably close up shop early or get somebody to take care of it. They get on a tricycle. They go to Pure Gold. They get a bit of a better price there, but they're still paying retail. What we can do now with our lending platform is when the distributor shows up, we know what their order history looks like. We've pre-approved them for credit. So if they don't have cash, when they're ordering the noodles that they know they can sell, if they don't have cash, there is an option right there in the device for them to take credit on the spot. And that the pricing and the fees are extremely reasonable because we already know, the kind of risk that these guys represent. And it's typically very good risk. It's just that it's been hidden because they've been excluded for so long. So anyways, a couple of stories just to kind of make it very real and concrete.
Thanks, John. I mean, there's nothing like a story to really implant this reality that's going on, the sea change that's going on. So it's good to see that intermediation costs are going down, time is compressed in terms of transactions, and MSMEs are happy. And more importantly, the rural banks, which I know are also going through a difficult phase right now, are still enhancing their trust, being last mile delivery entrenched institutions in the communities, and you're partnering with them has actually helped empower them. So it's good to see that. And part of the virtuous circle, so I'll bring Matt in again, and part of this virtual circle is about innovations and investing in innovation. So when you look at the pipeline that you've already invested in, a lot of traction with the tools like I2I and your lending platform and Bucks and all that, what other investments are you seeing coming on stream that will hasten this inclusion and, more importantly, this contribution to the economy?
I'll mention two called themes. One might be considered a vertical, which would be supply chain, and this is something where we can touch MSMEs and SMEs, and it plugs into our investment that we've done into Xlog surrounding the logistics, and being able to have the full view of that entire chain allows us to automate as many things as possible along the way to cut out the manual piece or a step piece, and that automation brings down the cost to provide the service, and also can serve to bring up the trust when there may to date be a lot of just manual and kind of legacy personal relationships, but that folks can have options. And so that automation and the ability to provide reach and open up the entire set of credit, people who want to provide credit or people who want to take credit, both upstream and downstream from, say, the lending platform that John mentioned. So that's a quasi-vertical theme. But the other area of focus is something, people talk about verticals, but that we think about a horizontal layer of that financial infrastructure, the picks and shovels that financial institutions need, and more, especially when you get into the medium and large enterprises, they're ready to have automation and things embedded into their side. They have reasons that things need to be on their side of the wall, so to speak. And so we have the ability to automate things for them, send signals up and down their markets if that's something they want automated. And what does it mean to automate? It's manual processes, and often it's predictable, known, repeatable documents that need to be collected and scanned. For example, certifications. And the more we can automate those, we've made some investments in that category as well. And I think it's really important, and technology is very much the key, but our ability to bench test these, we've got an embedded use case through our traction and through some of the core financial institutions that we've already been connected with through the initial features that we rolled out. So those are very promising and are things that we're going to continue to invest in the specific founders or ventures that we've already made an investment and continue to support them. And I expect that we'll continue to review the fit and the advancement that we and the potential investee can get from our involvement and from making an investment and developing a commercial relationship at the same time.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, it's also important to note that your investments are going across the value chain, from MSMEs to the medium scale business and doing back-end transactions. At the end of the day, this entire ecosystem has to work smoothly for an economy to do really well. So good to see those investments going there. Now, finally, gentlemen, before we open it up our questions to the media, John, you talked about going beyond borders, and then when you talk about your footprint in the Philippines and Singapore, certainly both good bulwarks in terms of fintech and also in financial inclusion. Tell us about the future. Where is UBX's presence and footprint going to be felt in the coming months and years?
Yeah, I think in a couple ways. I mean, perhaps a little bit more directly, we have been very public and have shared specific examples of how we are, for example, like we have connected the I2I network to other payments networks like NRPS domestically in the Philippines. We ran a pilot that I alluded to through the PayNow network in Singapore, connecting people who do online banking in Singapore, for example, directly to member financial institutions on I2I. And by the way, that's in the past, remittance is the way remittances have typically worked is it's a highly manual process to get it into the network. Once it's into the network, it goes quite quick. But what's interesting is you are at the mercy of the receiver, and so there's an element of control that's taken away from the sender of the money. And what we imagine in terms of expanding our network is to step change improve what up until now is a remittance process. We want, and the reason why an account to an account transfer is so important is that it allows the sender, the OFW, to maintain control of the funds as they get it from, for example, Singapore. They go into their banking app, and through PayNow, they remit directly to their bank account in the province in Mindanao. But it's in their account. And then, of course, through digital banking, they can now pay bills, save money, or allow some of that fund to be dispersed for immediate, consumption needs for the people back home. That's what that is all about. We've been very public about what we've been doing and the Singapore pilot, but of course we are looking to expand that into multiple jurisdictions, right? And so we are working with both technology and business partners to make that happen. Our technology in general, all of what we are doing is technology that is easily used or replicable use cases, I guess. I think I'm sounding too technical already, but it can be used, it can be leveraged in other parts of certainly our region, if not globally. There are economies that are very similar to the Philippines in the region. But I think in that case, we will, most likely do that through partnerships. And this is where our venture capital activities, ostensibly, it's about investing in complementary technology or capability, and maybe and often bringing it to the Philippines. But it also goes the other way. And in some cases, it's not about investing money at all. It's actually about forging partnerships and relationships. We might have the technology, but there is a partner on the ground in an Indonesia or a Malaysia that can actually get it to an established customer base.
Yeah, thanks, John. And Matt, just in terms of where you're looking at these jurisdictions and expansions, the kind of appetite you have for these verticals and subsectors?
We wouldn't rule out an investment in a company from anywhere really in the world. It's just about the applicability here, and in some cases, making the investment in a founder who's on the other side of the world at the earlier stage. They might not otherwise enter the region or our market, and so making that investment can frequently be that enabler, and it's a good use of proceeds from our standpoint. And when we find that shared goal and that compatibility, then we like to be able to act on that as well. So that's part of the agility, really, is to know what we're looking for, be transparent with the market and founders surrounding the use cases that we're after, start by showing what we're doing and what our future is going to look like. The gaps can be apparent, so to speak, if you're a founder, if you're a subject matter expert, and we have good relationships globally and good networks that we can use to efficiently provide that coverage and that even that listening post for the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Nothing like a virtuous circle and growing ecosystem of partners where you can look at these opportunities and invest in them. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for that. Now we move on to the questions and answers section for the media. And there's been a lot coming in already, a few robust questions as well. Just as a reminder, we do have a Q&A box here on Zoom that you can use to type in your question. Please do state your name and the organization you're representing before you proceed with your questions. And you can also raise your hand using Zoom if you want to ask your question directly to our panelists today. Let me take from the top on the ones that came in first, so we have a proper order with this. I mean, John, you talked about, adaptability to 2G, but then, the future is here. UnionBank has become the first 5G powered bank in partnership with Globe. How does that 5G technology play a part in your vision of, expanding the pie? How are you taking advantage of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I guess, we've started at UnionBank by making sure that, so now I'm speaking, for the bank or on the bank side of this, but obviously we share that pedigree. As the networks themselves expand that kind of capability across the country, we've had we've taken an early start by making sure, for example, that all of our branches, our UnionBank branches in this case, are operating under 5G. And so at least when you're in the proximity of one of our branches or in one of a location that we service, we can take advantage of that capability to digitally enable that experience. And so those are capabilities that we might be able to take and integrate into the customers and the ecosystems that some of the UBX base is, or some of the UBX base. But of course, ultimately, as the entire nation transforms to this type of connectivity, the amount of features and capabilities that you are going to be able to expose to users and communities is just going to go, it's going to, and it's an exponential curve. It's going to go up exponentially. I mean, some of us are old enough to remember what the internet was like in the late 1990s, and, watching a video was tough. Okay. And now, today that's, we do it on our phones, in the car, right? So, imagine, we're doing, very transactional kind of things over platforms like, like Grab and Facebook and some of the platforms like what we're building. But imagine how much richer those experiences and more immersive those experiences could be if we actually had the depth of that kind of connectivity and bandwidth.
Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, you're preaching to the choir as someone who's coming in with the dial-up thing in the 90s. It's certainly come a long way. There's a lot more to go, especially with 5G coming in. Now, I think this question is addressed to both of you, from Rory Visco from frontpage.ph. And he was asking about your appetite and confidence about the future of cryptocurrency in the Philippines and its role in financial inclusivity, notwithstanding the pandemic. Gents, Matt or John?
Well, let me start. Because I think Matt may have an interesting perspective from a venture capital perspective that I think would include, the landscape, not just in the Philippines, but beyond the Philippines. But on a very practical level, what we like about cryptocurrency is that it's a natively digital store of value. And it also runs on a distributed network. We use under the covers, we use a cryptocurrency in the I2I network. It is a stable coin. And what that means is that for every we call it PHX, by the way. So it's because it's tied to the Philippine peso. So for every stable coin that we have floating in the I2I network, there is a auditable fiat peso, real peso in the vault. Okay, so why do I mention this? It powers the I2I network. The I2I network is distributed. We don't incur the costs of a central authority having to manage the flow of payments. And so it makes it, and this is probably why a lot of these institutions were excluded in the past. What this technology allows for is a very economically viable payments network, because we don't incur the overhead of these central authorities. At the same time, the cryptocurrency that's embedded here is it's secure, it's encrypted, and then because it's a stable coin and because it's BSP approved, it's guaranteed and it's tied to the value of the actual Philippine peso. So it's so I think this is the evolution of cryptocurrencies. There's the tech, and then it's like, okay, great tech, how do we leverage this to solve real problems, including people's comfort and trust in it? And that's why we went down the path of working with the BSP to create a stable coin that they could approve and that we could use in our networks.
Yeah, thanks, John. And Matt, from an investment and VC perspective?
We do get opportunities to review investments in the space, and just as in any space, we're looking at the quality of the founding team, the traction and sustainability of what they're doing, and what I've found in reviewing opportunities in the space is that we can really quickly filter out the investable opportunities via an articulation of that use case. And if it's a sound use case that we can relate to, we understand the pain point that it's addressing, and then we can make a bet on the potential adoption of this. These systems generally they really rely on a mass of adoption, and we're in a position to project with certain attributes of the opportunity where they might land in that, and we can frequently be of some value to help make that a reality as well for the founding team.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And gentlemen, I mean, it's so important to note that you're not starving for choices in terms of founders and different traction, momentum in terms of making choices on these investments. It really illustrates how how deep the bench is in terms of looking at these innovations and investments for you to choose from as you move this forward. Now, let's move to the MSME side. I mean, and this discussion we had about informal sellers and people registering on platforms like Centro. A couple of folks have actually asked the same question. Enzo Luna from Metropoler and Doris Tumlao from Philippine Daily Inquirer. What is your target market for Centro? In terms of the kind of people you want to bring in or you're encouraging to come in, and what have you seen so far in terms of the profile of the users and how they're growing through your platform?
Yeah, the profile that we thought that this platform would be most relevant for our sellers. Often casual sellers, but sometimes, sometimes established businesses who are typically selling over Facebook or Instagram today. They'll put a picture up and typically they'll fulfill orders through a Facebook Messenger chat or a Viber chat. And we thought that, something is keeping them from, the ones that are truly viable businesses or have, definite aspirations to grow, because some people are very comfortable with that, but the ones that are viable and have aspirations, something is keeping them from moving to Shopify or maybe participating in Lazada or something like that, and that's the gap that we really wanted to fill, because we thought that's a very, very big gap, and I alluded to some numbers earlier. And so our idea was, well, something's keeping them from using it. It's probably cost or complexity. It's probably one or the other or both. And so that's why we created Centro to be super fast, super easy, super simple. Literally, you are selling in minutes. And we needed to do things like embed, you don't have to go and then, get a wallet or work with a payments gateway. It's just baked in. You don't have to work or call a delivery service after the sale. It's just baked right into the app. And so that was the thinking. So certainly we had targeted, and we continue to target that type of profile, businesses, casual sellers, et cetera, that fit into that kind of profile. But what's interesting is, and certainly that represents the majority, but what we noticed and what was interesting is, as we were trying to disrupt, at kind of the bottom of the e-commerce pyramid, what we noticed is that the features that we were building in and the ease with which we were making it for people to get online is actually appealing to, what I would characterize as larger businesses or mid-tier businesses. And we are now starting to see some of these mid-tier or larger businesses looking at, and in some cases getting on to to Centro. And, quite frankly, if you think about it, it actually kind of makes sense. These businesses might warrant a more complex or a more sophisticated platform. But the reality is that as I said before, a lot of even larger businesses were, resorting to Viber at the beginning of the pandemic when they really realized that, okay, we can't wait any longer. We got to get online. And the ease and the simplicity with which we can enable that through Centro, I think has resonated, with not just the smallest businesses, but some of the mid-tier and even larger businesses.
Certainly, John, it's good to see these embedded suite of tools there for both the first-time user and those who are moving up in terms of transactions and size. So it looks like the customization has been there, which is a good segue to the next question. Robert Reyes has asked about the human touch in terms of making in design thinking. The first thing you think about is empathy and making sure the users' concerns are addressed. How have you kept that that focus in terms of making that human touch still there as you grow your platform, as you grow your suite of applications for both small businesses and larger businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So 3 things. So number one, it all starts right at the beginning in the design of the platforms and the services that we are embedding. We engaged in design thinking workshops, focus groups with the target customers right from the get-go, right? So when we did eye to eye, we flew to remote rural banks, engaged with the banks and their customers. When we designed Bucks and Centro, we engaged directly and had lots of interaction with businesses. So even at the design stage, we're working directly with the people that we will be targeting or that we see as benefiting from these platforms. So that's number one. Number two is partnering. Obviously, when we embed, for example, a Bucks or a lending platform into an existing platform or channel of a partner, quite often they have existing relationships with customers, and they will offer, a direct human experience, because of the way that they've always done business. The rural banks are a great example of that. The customers that we're touching through eye to eye are customers of rural banks, and they're in the community, and these people have direct human contact and relationships. The last part of it is, we have human support built into all of our platforms. Of course, we've embraced digital. When you are in our apps or in our websites, you can access us through the messaging that is built in, for our business partners and our SMEs, we are a Facebook Messenger or a Viber away, and we answer those. We respond to those.
Great. Thanks. And John, one more thing to look at, and Matt, you can also weigh in on this, is that, from an investment perspective, startups obviously have, a different lens in terms of availability of resources, and also at the end of the day, with lower returns of investment and also, maybe a very effective risk appetite. How is UBX, encouraging them to get, to encourage that risk appetite and getting back into the fold of doing what they do best? How have you encouraged a resilience and confidence in the economy again through your platforms?
Well, I'll start. I think it's, so for example, just to make this very concrete, can they get credit? And so, we hit that right at the root. One of the reasons why you might not take risks or you might be hesitant about getting involved is because, as simple as, can I fund my business? And obviously we, through CCAP and through our lending platform, we're trying to make that, easy, if not a possibility, just a possibility, also easier. And I guess the other part of it is is the rest of the platforms themselves. If we make it easier for you to connect with your customers, even under trying circumstances, because you are now digital, it really, that eliminates some of the barriers that have been thrown up, I guess, by the pandemic and the various lockdowns and quarantines. I guess on the, pandemic, quarantine or not, typically SMEs, as an example, they probably need things like automation and tools to run their business even more than the bigger companies do, because they have less resources. And so through these digital platforms, we're making that available. We're embedding it directly into the activities that matter to them, like, for example, a Sari store ordering stuff from a distributor. It can be that simple. But what's really happening here is that, digital is leveling the playing field, right? We are capabilities that were once only available to the larger companies are now available through digital to even the smallest casual seller or the smallest store, for example. And I guess, at the end of the day, digital is really the economically viable channel that will bring this type of inclusion. We're speaking about businesses, but even by extension to consumers.
Yeah, thanks, John. Matt, did you want to add anything to that as well?
Oh, I can add that the founder-friendly approach, it really centers around letting the founder do what they're good at. The team does what they're good at, and that's the bet we're making is on them to do their craft, to deploy that expertise and their vision, the thing that they're willing to bet on, and we're making that bet with them. And so if that means just understanding what it is that they need, if that includes capital or funding, for example, then that's something that we're in a position to assist with. That can even include involving our technology services team as well, if that's to augment their capabilities if needed, and to help them move faster and to borrow some adjacent expertise that may not be something core to them or something that they need, so that they can move with that agility and be able to see through their own vision. But it centers around that founder friendliness and really understanding, what bet they're making, what bet we're making, how can we help, and sometimes help means let it happen. We don't gain by fully holding people's hands, but I keep my phone on 24 hours a day. So if someone, people need something, then we're going to help figure out a response. And if we can't do it, then we're going to help find one.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I mean, and gentlemen, it's good to see that from an institutional investment perspective. You're there ready at the get-go. And John, in your case, you hit it on the head in terms of providing credit, because that is the big pain point right now from a prolonged knockdown in terms of, the confidence of the market is there, I suppose, because it's resilient. It's just the access to credit given the constrained cash flows that is hitting SMEs, and you're there at the forefront providing it. Thank you for that response. Now, we have just a couple of questions left before we wrap this up, and they're all converging around. Well, one is on for the SMEs themselves. I think Edsel Loreto has from BigTito.net has actually asked a question a couple of times along with others, which is the scope of products and services that we put on Central. He just wants to see how different it is in marketplace in terms of scope of products, and will there be usage fees imposed over first-time users, and those are growing in the ecosystem.
Yeah. So we have seen tremendous diversity in what people are selling. There seems to be some, food, and this might even be the effect of the pandemic as well, but certainly food is, seems to be very decently represented. But quite frankly, everything from cosmetics to gadgets to clothing, You know, everything and anything is you know, people are leveraging the platform to put an e-commerce front on their business. There are no to use Centro. There are no usage fees. We don't have a subscription to sign up and start using it. So yeah, I mean, you know, perhaps in the future there will be you know, premium features or features that you know, if appropriate, they, you know, the stores and the users can avail of. One thing that we're, you know, just to maybe give you know, a little preview into the future when it comes to Centro, we are working on an app marketplace for Centro. So getting them online and getting them transacting online is and was job number one and the first priority. But you know, as they move their businesses to digital, they will need access to other digital tools to run their businesses, especially as their businesses grow. They'll need access to, you know, digital ways of handling their tax, digital accounting systems. You know, sky's the limit, I guess, on what they will require. We're actively working with partners so that through the Centro platform, it will be just like Centro is today. It will be fast, easy, and simple for them to add those capabilities onto their business. But as far as the e-commerce platform as it stands today, as I said, inventory management, order management, shopping cart, integrated payments and delivery services out of the box, that is free.
Yeah. Thanks, John. I mean, it's also helpful to note that, you know, you are growing this ecosystem, and as sophistication grows, the set of tools and innovations will grow with it. So people are looking forward to that, and it'll all boil down to the user experience and their demands and you addressing those demands going forward. Now, finally, you know, in the interest of time and to our friends in the media, you're going to have the opportunity to ask these questions via email as well for those that were left behind for a bit. One question that has come up quite a bit is in terms of, you know, interface with other similar platforms. I mean, this is obviously not happening in a vacuum. You're looking at our counterparts in the banking industry and in the fintech industry. Can UBX and its platforms interface with others? Monty Serrano from Philippine Business News asked that and sends his congratulations.
Yeah. So great. Yeah, great question. While we have platforms like Centro and I2I, a lot of our platforms are actually designed to be embedded into the platforms or business systems of others. So for example, not all of the SMEs or even larger businesses that I discussed will ever use Centro. They use Lazada, they use Shopify, you know, they use these other platforms. So Bucks, as an example, is made to integrate, and it does integrate actually out of the box with most of the common e-commerce platforms, but we are integrating Bucks into things like you know, for clinics, we're integrating it into the business system of clinics so that they can handle digital payments and all forms of payments. You know, so we'll integrate it right into, you know, let's call it, you know, the platform of a clinic or chain of clinics. So we're doing stuff like that. I talked about Lazada already. Not only does you know, not only could something like Bucks integrate into a Lazada, our CCAP lending platform, we are integrating that into Lazada. So we will be integrated into, we already have a partnership. It's actually very public. We offer lending through our CCAP marketplace to Lazada merchants. But we are, and in fact, the design of our platform, of our lending platform, is so that it's integrated fully into the Lazada experience. So if I'm a merchant in Lazada without even leaving the merchant page, you know, in a click of a button, so to speak, I can apply for and be approved for working capital credit, on the spot. It would be a real-time experience.
Yeah. John, thanks so much for that. I mean, I think it's a fitting way to end in terms of the way the network is growing, the ecosystem is growing, the collaboration is growing across platforms. It seems to be a brave new world and a better normal for everyone with UBX's initiatives and first mover advantage. So with that, we'd like to close this portion of the Q&A. Thank you to our friends in the media who've asked your questions. We have a few more that's coming up, but the way we're going to do this is for those who have more questions coming up and who weren't able to get them addressed today, please send them to grace.antonio@grupoagatep.com. And at this point, I'd like to call on James Ileto to deliver closing remarks. James.
Thank you, Quintin. Wow, very good discussion here. Well, UBX is truly passionate about creating opportunities and access for all by connecting communities and embedding financial services into the activities and experiences that matter. UBX is truly inclusive, and like what John said earlier, beyond fintech, where there's seemingly no limit. We also are sending to you, for those who have attended this E-TalkTales, SME gift vouchers as our way of showing our gratitude for your attendance today. We hope that you can join us again next month for our next E-TalkTales. Now here's Quintin to close us out today for some of our poll questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James, and for Matt and John for just this robust dialogue and discussion. Certainly thought-provoking and a lot more to discuss in the future. Speaking of which, we've got options for you, and we're going to take a quick poll to determine the topic for our next E-Tales in October. And here are the options basically. 1, data science and AI or artificial intelligence, new tech to further humanize human banking. And just as a background, this is about strengthening the human touch, which many of you had mentioned earlier, in banking and finance services through the use of data science and artificial intelligence. That's the first topic. A second topic to choose from is UnionBank transaction banking, digitizing business banking for the new normal. Well, this is all about transaction banking as a key driver for digitizing business in the banking for the new normal post-pandemic environment. Certainly an interesting topic as well. And finally, on the third topic, it's on EON, from Philippines' first online bank account to surging digital bank. This is about EON as a trailblazer or first mover in the country's digital banking space and where to go from there. You've got 3 minutes to provide your answer. We want to make this as democratic as possible, so we have a very relevant and responsive 5th E-TalkTales coming up for you next month. All right. We probably have over a couple of minutes for you to choose from or think about this. All 3 equally compelling topics, but I'm happy to hear your pulse and feel your pulse and your choices. All right, just about a minute. All right, do we have a winner or a clear choice for our panelists? Next week. All right, what's come up to the fore? I mean, all equally compelling topics, but the one that's come to the fore for next month, the consensus of the majority is UnionBank transaction banking, digitizing business banking for the new normal. Certainly a relevant topic and something to look forward to. So until then, I want to thank everyone, for our panelists, John and Matt and James for capping this off, for hosting us, and the entire UnionBank team and UBX team. Thank you for carving some time out for us today. All the best, stay safe, and we'll see you at the next E-TalkTales.